Hi everyone, this is Jason and welcome back to the channel. Joining me today is Isaiah Jackson, author of Bitcoin and Black America. But before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Joining me today, and it's a great pleasure to have him joining me, is Isaiah Jackson, author of Bitcoin and Black America. It's a powerful call to action for the Black community and how we can get involved in the Bitcoin cryptocurrency space. I'm going to provide a link in the description where you can get a copy of the book. Is a must read for everybody. We're going to start with that. Thank you for coming on the show with me.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here, man.
So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions because I read the book. So it gives you an overview of how you got into the space. But could you, for the people who haven't read the book, give us an idea of how you found cryptocurrency, how you found Bitcoin particularly, and what motivated you to write the book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, how I got into Bitcoin initially began in 2013, which is almost 7 years. Crazy to think about. Started back then. I had a roommate who worked for a bank, and they actually discussed Bitcoin in one of their meetings. So he came home and kind of told me about it. He was like, some tech thing. I don't know what it is. And I was in the tech field. So he just kind of passed it off to me. I explored more. I liked what I saw. One of the first videos I saw was Max Kaiser, who was, explained Bitcoin very well. And I was pretty much hooked the first, day of looking through videos. And from that point, got into trading and consulting, a little bit of mining as well, altcoins. And in the consulting space, a lot of my clients were Black, and I felt like it was inefficient to only do consulting one-on-one or in small groups. So that's what gave me the inspiration to write the book, because I figured if I can get the word out on a broad scale, let's do it. You know what I mean? A lot of the solutions that are in that book, I give to clients to try and get them into the space. And I definitely wanted to make sure that broad message was out. So that's basically how I got in and what took me to writing this book.
Because I think the one hurdle that a lot of us in the space have is when we try to explain Bitcoin to people who don't know about Bitcoin. So if you're one of your clients, this is day one, how do you explain Bitcoin to them?
Oh yeah. Well, I start off by simply telling them Bitcoin is money. It is a different type of money, but it is money. It has all the three values that money needs. It's a unit of account, it's a store of value, it's a medium of exchange. And I explained to them that the use case for it has the price of Bitcoin has shown you what people use it for, speculation, also a store of value. But long term, if we have a new money system, especially when I'm speaking to clients for the first time, I always tell them, hey, long term, do you think banks are going to be the solution to our issues? And everybody hates their bank. So as soon as they say it's a different kind of money and they hate their bank, they're like, let me, explore this a little more because most of, banking is essentially forced consensus. So people don't have a choice. They have to use a bank. So when I ask them, do you like your bank? Nobody does. I don't know anybody who really does. So start there, say Bitcoin's new money, and then explain it from there.
Okay. Yeah, because what I normally do when I'm talking to someone about it, I usually give them an example of you have a credit card that doesn't have a middleman.
Yeah, essentially, and you have the ability to keep the value for long term. Well, use it for payments. Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So in the book, and I think we've all gone through this. You tell people about Bitcoin, and you tell them how much Bitcoin is worth at the time. And how come you're not rich? Right. So are you still getting that from people, or are they seeing the broader picture now that Bitcoin is in more mainstream media?
Oh yeah. Well, twofold to that question. The first one, the people that doubted before, those doubts kind of went away when I moved to Beverly Hills. So that kind of, people was, why aren't you rich yet? I'm still not in my eyes rich, but my situation has changed. So those questions don't occur at all anymore. But as far as going forward, one of the issues we have with people getting into the space is that they just don't know regular people. And that's one of the things that when they were like, why aren't you rich yet? I was like, you do realize, there's a few millionaires, just like any other system, there's a few people at the bottom that are starting. But if you're getting in the space, I'm one of those regular people who had a regular job. I was buying weekly. I was dollar cost averaging. And to them, they're just hearing about Lambos and everybody becoming a millionaire. And I was like, no, it's way more to the space than just, making millions of dollars from it. But, and especially being in the tech space, I was doing IT for years. And, a lot of tech people, I was like, you understand it. You can get into it. But they would just be like, well, if I'm not rich, I don't know why I would do it. So yes, that was a big issue, but those questions don't really occur anymore. Especially back then, the price was like $400 or $500 when I was doing the bulk of my consulting. So when you see that all the way up to now, we're at 10, 11,000. It's not even a question.
Right. Well, and I think the tech aspect is actually where the real benefit is, and you touch on that in the book. And I was speaking with on Twitter. Her name is Paris Athena, and we were talking about all the other things that you can do in crypto that aren't money related. Like someone has to build the protocols.
Yep.
Right. So there's a place for everybody in it, and it doesn't have to be, financial related. I mean, I guess by and large, crypto is financial related just because we use it as money and an investment tool. But you can go your whole life in crypto and never use a wallet. I mean, you could technically do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad you talked with her about that with the, I believe she has the Black Tech Pipeline she started.
Right.
Yep. So I'm glad she's introducing that because, like I say, in the book for software developers who are coming up now, I know everybody wants to work for Google, everybody wants to work for IBM, whoever. However, I do make the case that in the Black community, if we're building the products that people are going to be using in the future, we are building the next Google, the next Uber, whatever. And in the blockchain space, like you said, you don't have to know how to trade and use cryptocurrencies for that reason. You can create tokens. You can use blockchain technology for different aspects, for dApps. The transparency alone is good enough for me. I mean, it's just like I can actually verify any data or anything on there. So I think, yes, I make that case. And in the Black community, if there is an industry that we can be a large part of that will, basically be the future, why not get started now? We have the skills. Let's do it.
Right. And I mean, you think about that Hidden Figures movie, and I keep referencing that because it's our situation in a nutshell, right? Where when companies automate, they tend to cut from the bottom, right? And in a lot of these companies, we're at the bottom. So we're usually the first to go. Where what they did was, okay, their supervisor knew that was coming. So instead of just letting these people lose their jobs, she started learning how to use the computer that was supposed to replace them. Then she taught everyone else, and then everyone else kept their jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good example, perfect, because people talk about artificial intelligence taking jobs. It's the perfect time to learn how to code, learn about tech, because you could be the person that programs the machine that supposedly is taking your job. You're right. Yeah.
Well, and then also you think that to mine crypto, you need some rather hardcore, for it to be profitable, hardcore equipment. But to program it, you just need a laptop.
That's all you need.
I mean, the guy who, what was his name? I forget his name, but the guy in Canada that supposedly died with all the crypto on his laptop.
From Quadriga CX.
Quadriga, right?
Yeah, Quadriga CX guy, yep.
So he had all that on his laptop. It wasn't in a server. It wasn't in he ran that organization from his laptop. And that just goes to show you the entry potential for people. If you can connect to the internet, you'd be surprised what you can do.
Oh yeah. And you definitely have to have the will to keep pushing forward and build it. Because that is one thing I do see is, we tell people the entry is easy. Just have a laptop. Why isn't everybody using it? But you got to remember, it's a new industry and a lot of people are scared off, and even the will to work through it. Some people just don't have it. They'd rather go the safe route. But in the blockchain space, if you're building blockchain right now, it's still sort of the Wild West. Just a laptop will get you in. So it is going to be, a good competition. But if you get in there, it's perfect because you got high schoolers, you have people who may not have, anything to do with crypto from a money standpoint. And they have, resources at schools. I mean, college students, everybody can join it now. So this is perfect.
Right. And then you think that, you have these apps that teach kids how to code, right? And I mean, blockchain is essentially it's coding, right? It's Python, it's C++, it's C Sharp, it's JavaScript.
Yep.
Whatever come on in,
Exactly.
I mean, And I'm learning through exposure on Twitter and social
Mhm.
media that there are a lot more people of color in tech than people may be aware of.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah,
and that's actually that's a positive sign for the future, I think.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's misrepresented, much like Bitcoin has been in the media, much like Black people have been in the media. The statistics never really reflect what I see with my own eyes. Like I
Right.
see so many Black people starting businesses, starting tech companies, getting into tech, and then you look in the media and they're like, "Oh yeah, still nobody Black wants to be in the tech world." I'm like, that's not really
Right,
true.
that's not true. Yeah.
A lot of people who are moving into that space, either like laterally moving in from their job or just going straight into it with boot camps and stuff. So yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, also, like I spent the last 6 years in IT. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've been into computers for basically all my life, but I didn't do it as a career until like the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I don't know that much about how to code a blockchain, I know what it is,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I can relatively clearly explain to someone else what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So my role in the space is explaining the space, not building it. I'm going to let you build it.
Yeah, you
And
got it.
you show it to me, and then I'll show it to them. And that's
Absolutely.
so there's a role for everybody, even if you don't have the technical side.
Oh yeah, and most people don't. So you have to find your niche, and
Right.
that's one of the things I outlined in the book. Find your niche. There's a place for everybody, and you should be good. You can prosper in this market, definitely.
Right, exactly. I'm glad you pointed out the part about people being scared away,
Oh yeah.
because the level of FUD
Mm.
is, I've never seen this level of FUD directed at a particular industry
Mm-hmm.
the way it is towards crypto. And when I hear the what's is it was Mnuchin is the Secretary of the Treasury say,
Uh, yeah. I believe that's the name.
I believe, yeah, that the United States dollar has never been used for illicit. I'm like, really?
I mean, it's just straight up lying at this point.
Right.
I mean, we do our daily show. I mean, we literally do it every day. So we've seen the news change over the last 2 years. Like you said, they're just lying at this point.
Well, they're just lying at this point, and
I,
it's
be,
like,
I believe Bitcoin has been dead how many times? 100 or so.
I
They
think
keep coming up.
we're at 140.
I'm saying, how many times has Bitcoin died now? Yeah, so
Right.
you're right. I've never seen this in my life, and seeing it in real time is pretty funny because you can see people's thought process isn't their own. It's
Right.
the people behind them. You can
Exactly.
tell like clear as day now in the Bitcoin industry. You'll ask somebody in person, "Hey, what do you think about Bitcoin?" And they're like, "Well, the regulators and blah blah blah." And you ask them in private, you know what I mean? And they'll go, "Oh yeah, I definitely have some Bitcoin." I'm like, what is
Right.
going on here?
Well,
You really see media as a game. It's a whole
yeah,
game.
and you think the media is basically just the mouthpiece of the corporations anyway, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, Jamie Dimon. It,
Man, Diamond the dinosaur, man. We've had him on the dinosaur today so many times.
oh
Man.
my God! And you know what? It's funny. Before I found crypto, I was looking at the regular stock market, and I actually kind of like Jamie Dimon. And when you look at the way that he maneuvered his way up the chain and became
Yeah.
his position, but now when I listen to him, I'm like, either he is he's either lying
Mhm.
or he's delusional.
Yeah.
But it's not that's it.
It's one of,
Right?
yeah, that's it. It's either one of the, exactly. And he's not delusional. He knows what he's doing.
He
All right.
knows what he's doing, right?
And I figured after the second or third time he went to a big conference and they asked him about Bitcoin, he was like, "I'm done talking about it." He
Right.
kind of gave himself away because it was
Give
just like,
yourself away.
"Oh, you're actually frustrated with the fact that people have figured out you bullshit.
Right.
You are not telling the truth." And it's funny to hear him talk now because it's whatever.
Well, and then you think like when Facebook did their whole ban on cryptos, right?
Wow.
As soon as they did that, I knew they were working on something. As soon as they made it so that you couldn't advertise your project,
Mm-hmm.
something in the back of my head was like, yeah, they're making their own. And as soon as Visa started blocking people from being able to send funds to
Mm-hmm.
exchanges, and yeah, they're working on something too. You
They're
know,
working on something. Yep.
Is
Mm-hmm.
and it's to bring it back to the book. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is why your book is so important, is because people need to be able to see what's going on in the real world and
Mm-hmm.
be able to see the pieces moving. Right.
Absolutely.
When the
Yeah.
president of the United States starts talking about Bitcoin, you need to start looking at Bitcoin.
It should have been a mass exodus from the banking system that day. It should have
Right.
just been, oh, well, we know for a fact Bitcoin is here to stay now.
Right.
So, what can you say? Yeah, you're right. That you got to be able to navigate. And in the book, one of the things I try and point out, like I said with FUD, is that if you think about how Black people are misrepresented in the media, just think about all the stories you've heard. Be like, that's not really how it is. That's exactly what Bitcoin is going through right now. Anything that threatens the establishment is going to get that media, that FUD. Basically, do the opposite of what the news says. That's what I tell a lot of my family members. They're like, well, when I watch the news, they said on Fox, they said on CNBC. I was like, just do the opposite, and then you'll be just fine. And it's worked, for the past few years.
I've had and I give CNBC a lot of crap on Twitter, but
Yeah,
it's like,
they deserve it.
right. And to me, it's like, okay, if I was going to give you any financial advice, and we never give financial advice,
Never.
ever. But if I were, it would be do the exact opposite of anything CNBC tells you.
That's about a 90% hit rate right now. It just the CNBC contraindicated. Whatever they say, do the opposite. You got about 90% chance. Yeah.
And you know what's sad is that that's pretty much consensus in the community. It's like, yeah, don't listen to those people.
Yeah, not at all.
So I wanted to ask you, because of the detail and there's a lot of detail in this book, even going to the exchanges, which I liked. How long did it take you to put everything together to write the book?
It took about 10 or 11 months. About almost a year. And the front end of it, it's my first book. So the front end of it, the first 6 months were brutal. When you're writing a book, it's a long process having to sit down and write and think about stuff and then piecing together all the information. But the biggest hurdle I would say over that time period was everything changes week to week. Like I literally would write paragraphs that were not true in 2 weeks,
Right.
because things would change with companies. People will switch over their regulations, laws, things of that nature. And, that was one of the hardest parts. So yeah, about 10, 11 months.
Right. And yeah, and you're right. Because when I first started writing about crypto, I was focusing on the price. And it moves way too quickly to focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially late 2017, 2018, right before the crash.
That was crazy.
I never thought XRP would be number 3.
Yeah. And Brad House was the top 5 richest people for like a week.
Right. And I was like, all right, let me back away. But with the way that, because I mean, you really can't get too far away from the FUD when you're talking about bringing people into a space. But do you think they throw out the regulation, the alphabet companies, to scare people away? Do you think that has a part of it? Because like I've heard of the IRS, but I've never heard of FinCEN before I got into this, right? And I'm like, who? Right?
It's a lot of alphabet groups, as I call them, that I describe in the book, like the FEC. I didn't know who the FEC was before I got into this industry, which deals with Federal Election Commission, being able to accept Bitcoin as a politician. Those things came up because it's a lot now and it's more coming. Trust me.
Right. And I mean, guys, pay your taxes. Don't. And I have to, you know what I thought about, there was a book, and it was basically about the relationship between Black people and the banking system. And
Color of Money.
Yes. And I'll link that in the description, because that's a
that's really good. Yep.
Yeah. What was it? Yvette Carnell talked about it on her show. She had like a reading list. And so what happened was this he was a black businessman, and he was the chief owner of the bank, and the bank was going under. So
Mm-hmm.
he used his own money to prop up the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and the they got him on money laundering.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm funding my company. Well,
Yeah.
no, you're funding your money. You put your money into a bank, and then that money was used to do something else, and we're going to use these laws against you.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's the reason why I bring that up in context to what you wrote in the book is people need to know not only is it about how many Bitcoin you have, is also you need to pay your taxes. You need to see which of these cryptocurrencies is considered a security, which one's considered just like a store of value. There's hoops that you have to jump through that may sound intimidating, but are for your own good to know.
Absolutely. Yep. And I would say the ICO market brought out so many people who have these coins that are basically worthless or going towards worthless. And one of the things you have to make sure people know when they get to the space is, yes, you have the options, but you need to know what you're doing. Because like you said, a lot of those ICOs are getting, they're getting SEC attention. And as far as going to court for things, we're starting to see companies they're looking up and like, oh yeah, that's a security. That's definitely a security.
Right.
For all the Ripple people out there, I'm sure we'll see that headline soon. But I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where you have to know what you're getting yourself into, which I describe in the first chapter of the book. I didn't. I just dove in head first, which was the wrong way to go about it. And I talk about my change in mindset. So definitely have to have that information before you invest in these coins or projects.
Right. And it's important to do that especially when you consider that this is long-term wealth we're potentially talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going anywhere,
No.
and right. And they can't take down Bitcoin, but they can sure go after Bitcoin investors. So you have to know the ins and out of what you're dealing with, especially when you consider Bitcoin as an international money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just because where I live, there's no problems doesn't mean where someone else lives, there are no problems. And you should know that kind of thing, This is and it to me, it falls into that whole do your own research aspect of cryptocurrency. Right?
Absolutely.
You need to know what's going on. You can't just take it for granted.
You got to stay vigilant. Absolutely.
Stay vigilant. Exactly. So I noted, and there's a passage also in the book where you talk about churches and using, because churches are nonprofits.
Yes.
At least in the United States anyway. And they can accept donation types of whatever they want. So one thing that could spur adoption, like you said, is churches accepting Bitcoin.
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And I just talked I was at the Bitcoin Is event out here in LA with Russell Okung. I just talked to his pastor. His pastor was in attendance. And when I brought up the idea to him, he said, yeah, Russell's asked me about it, but explain it to me. Like, what would it entail? And he thought it was a lot of tech things that needed to happen. I said, no. You can just put a QR code on the envelope. Like, and he was like, that's it? I was like, yeah, you could just put it out on a piece of paper. And he was like, really? I didn't know. So that's the thing. They just don't know. And then on top of that, the Catholic Church they have a storage of gold, real estate, and whoever else knows in Vatican City, which funds their global operation. They're able to grow globally and have big cathedrals in the middle of major cities because they don't pay taxes and they have a storage of wealth long term. Black church starts accepting Bitcoin, storing it for long term as donation. For one, you start the conversation with people in the church. And then for two, churches benefit. I think long term they will benefit. And I know a lot of times people say, oh, well, what about older people if they get into the space? A lot of older Black people go to church. Their pastor is telling them Bitcoin is good. Who do you think they're going to listen to first?
Right, exactly.
The TV person or the pastor? It's the pastor. They hold a lot of power. And if you can just get them to see how it works, see how easy it is, and we can get a few going. Me and Russell are actually working on, your show's the first to find out, we're actually working on a Bitcoin and the Black Church tour. So we realize the importance that holds in our community. I'm not a religious man myself, but I know exactly how important it is to people in my community.
Right.
My parents, they're all ordained pastors and ministers of music, so they're all in it heavy, and I could see how widespread it would be if it wasn't the church.
Right. And that's very true, because you think the civil rights movement was born in the church.
Born in the church.
So, and any I think that if we're talking about changing the financial future of a people, we need to go to where the people are.
Yeah.
And especially the people who have the wealth, because quite frankly, most of the wealth that is in the Black community is in older Black people's hands.
Yep, absolutely.
And we have to talk to those people so that they can, get into, and also, like you said before, steer them away from any scams that may be out there, because
absolutely,
Big Connect was a thing.
It was. They got a lot of people.
Got a lot of people.
And I do want to point out, as far as the scams portion of it, the one thing I do like in the space today is that the scams are becoming less and less, or I'm sorry, they're becoming more and more sophisticated because it's harder to trick people now. People are starting to realize it. And if people are extremely new and they just come to the space, they have a bevy of resources to use now. Whereas when I first started, there was a couple forums on Bitcoin Talk, and there was some dudes on Reddit, and you gotta hope they were, good people, because it's like 3 people in real life and then like 10 people online. So now it's enough resources where you can sit back for a second and say, hey, this sounds too good to be true. Then yes, it probably is. And with Bitcoin, the things that it's used for are the same things cash is used for, whatever. So you're going to hear those stories, but ignore it, just like you would with any other story about most of the Black problems. Just ignore it, because Bitcoin is going to be moving with or without you. So if you actually care about your kids and your grandkids, you will probably need to get into Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the thing is, other people are, so why be left behind? Especially now. I mean, even if you decided to go into something else, like say you wanted to do Litecoin.
Yeah.
Right? Litecoin, in my opinion, is a worthy asset to hold on to in relation to Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
Like you said, there are a lot of those. Like, you go to Coin Market Cap, there's over 1,500 cryptocurrencies. You can stop at about 40.
I know most people that I talk to, they're like, yeah, outside of the top 20 or 30 or so, it's like, yeah, whatever. And then even then, some of those have liquidity problems. They're just ideas. So you still got to look for those. And they'll have, 10% of their supply in circulation. And you're like, what is going on?
Right. I mean, the only wallet you have is a paper wallet? What the fuck?
Exactly. I've seen some funny ones. So, yeah, we definitely can do a good job of that once the word gets out. And I think churches are a big foundation of that.
Well, the other part is a lot of on the technology side. I mean, especially after you had programs like, I forget the name of the actual program, but basically it was during the Obama administration where they were giving away cell phones, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all you need is a cell phone to do crypto. You don't need anything beyond the ability to connect to the internet. So there's your cell phone, and there's no excuse, really. I mean, it's more of a will thing than anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, we're getting to the point, I've joked sometimes on Twitter, we're getting to the point that in 2020, if you don't know about Bitcoin or have at least heard about it or tried to read, I might stop talking to people. Just, what are you doing, man? Like, I can understand if you've never heard of it, like never. But I'm tired of talking to people that's like, yeah, I heard about it a few years ago. I thought it went away. See, I got to stop talking. I joke with that, but I mean, there's no excuse now. What can you say? I remember it used to be an onboarding problem before Coinbase.
Right.
And when it came, there was a security issue, which, we're still dealing with today because people didn't know you can get your private key stolen. Then, of course, now we're getting to the quote unquote institutional phase where people wanted to go mainstream, like the bridge to make it mainstream. What's that killer app supposedly supposed to be?
Right.
And it's been 10 years. What exactly do you need to see? And like, what more after the Senate hearing and Trump tweeting it? It's nothing I could tell you to convince you if that's not enough.
Yeah. So, at that point, if you don't want in, you're not going to get in.
You just don't want it. And you got to have the will to continue using it. But I just don't want it to be a situation like I have an uncle who didn't listen about crypto in 2014. he just got a memo from his bank that he works for that they are required to learn cryptocurrency by 2020. They have to take a cryptocurrency class in blockchain. So
What?
exactly. So guess who he's been calling my phone for the last?
I'm sure you're very popular right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I kind of want people to figure it out before you're forced to, because I would hate for a great group of Black accountants somewhere to have a great firm doing well, and then they ignore Bitcoin, and then the standard is Bitcoin has to be on your taxes somewhere. You're like, oh, you don't really know how to do, what I mean, whatever, or it costs you. You have to buy the software to do it. So it's much easier to get involved now, and start learning about it. You don't have to buy it; you just learn it and how to implement it, and that's it. You can earn it like you would anything else. So yes,
Right.
definitely.
Well, I mean, and then you also have to think about the you have the investor side, and then you have the holder side.
Yep.
We need to start circulating the currency,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a great way to do that would be to be like Nipsey Hussle was telling people about it. And if you are a small business owner and you're the only one in your area that accepts Bitcoin, you're going to get some business from people who know about Bitcoin in that area. And that's a great way to start building adoption from just little mom and pop stores who accept it.
Absolutely. And if you're a small business, you need every advantage you can get. So from a promotion standpoint, I tell businesses all the time, from a promotion standpoint, if you just say we accept Bitcoin, even if people with Bitcoin show up and you're like, oh, it's not working, they showed up. I mean, at the very least, you got more customers, and you will, because people like myself I look through different lists of different stores, and in the app, Airbits, they used to have, you can find stores locally to use Bitcoin. There's stores around me that I've convinced to accept Bitcoin. Why not? And as a small business, at the very least, promotion. At the very most, you could actually, store that Bitcoin and gain value on it. I use an example. Just yesterday, we had the event, or Sunday, we had the event. I was selling books. The Bitcoin that I accepted on Sunday, I believe I gained like $14 in 2 days just off the price jump. Probably more. I haven't even looked today, but that was just that night. Like by that night, I had gained that much.
Right.
So as a small business, imagine a year's worth of profits in Bitcoin that you have held. You could actually make more money than some of your competitors.
Well, and then you think, what other currency can you be involved in where that happens?
Well, that happens.
Like, if I give you $5 worth of Bitcoin today, it could be $10 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to get that with fiat currency. You just won't.
Not even with gold, not with silver, none of that.
Wow. So let's end it there. I want to thank you Isaiah for taking the time and coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And everyone, I need you to read this book. This book is fire. There it is. Bitcoin in Black America. All right. Yeah, it's very important. We're going to put a link in the description where you can get your copy. It's on Amazon, and you can get it directly from Isaiah's website.
Straight to Bitcoin in Black America for the autographed copy. Amazon, if you just want a few different ones for different people.
Perfect. Isaiah, once again, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, man.